What's up? Welcome in on this Tuesday night for the Rebel Report podcast. My name is Michael Borky. Glad that you guys are here. It is Kentucky week. The dreaded Wildcats of Kentucky are on the schedule, this time in Lexington. Weather expected to be pretty stunning. If you guys are making the trip to Lexington, congratulations, because you are getting a pretty remarkable Saturday weather-wise, as it turns out. But Lane Kiffin had his press conference, talked a little bit, not really a whole lot about Kentucky, but there's some things to take away from what he said. We'll play it for you. We'll talk about it. Ole Miss's physicality in this game is going to be tested. We'll talk about all that and more, and, of course, read your comments on this edition of the show. Don't forget, follow me on social media, Twitter more specifically, also TikTok as well. I've started that as well. I don't know why, but I'm there, so follow me there too, I suppose. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Just search Rebel Report, subscribe, and leave a rating and a review wherever you get your podcasts. And this edition is brought to you in part by Toyota of Brookhaven. Exit 40 in Brookhaven, online at toyotaofbrookhaven.com. They'll give you $1,000 off on me, just $1,000 on me if you just tell them that I sent you before anything else. They have great in-house financing, a pretty outstanding selection of used vehicles as well. They will take care of you at Toyota of Brookhaven. They will treat the car buying experience like what it actually is and not what the commercials tell you that it is. Because Toyota of Brookhaven will actually take care of you like a person. So check them out, toyotaofbrookhaven.com. All right. A few things that Lane Kiffin said in his press conference. It was a short one. They're doing this weird thing where they have the post game after games on Saturday, and then another thing on Sunday, and then another thing on Monday. I feel like he's talking to the media too much. Only about 6 minutes for his weekly press conference. I cut 3 different things about Kentucky though, and there's some stuff to talk about here. So here was part of his opening statement. Just thoughts about Kentucky and things of that nature.
You know, this is an exciting game to have up front like this early on. And we're going to have to prepare really well. This is an extremely well-coached team. Somehow, even including the one before we got here, the last 4, I believe, someone said have gone down to the last play of the game. It's got to be a record. So these guys always play really tough, really physical against us. And so we're going to have a really good week of practice like we did last week and be prepared to go on the road.
Really interesting, of course, that Ole Miss and Kentucky, of all matchups, that's the one that's been as close as it has been. This version of Kentucky does not even look like last year's, at least for their first audition anyway. I think their talent is worse than the 4-8 team a year ago, especially on the defensive front. However, it is still an SEC caliber defensive front, and the style of play is still one that they have had a hard time with. We talked a lot this offseason about altering the way they play, being better on the offensive line, getting more physical in the running back room, and being able to beat teams that way. Lane Kiffin has talked about that at length, where you have a late lead in a close game and you should be able to run the football to carry your team to a win, and they haven't been able to do that. Ole Miss is going to have to be physical in this game. Their physicality is going to be tested. Their manhood is going to be tested. You know that Kentucky is going to try to line up and slow this football game down. Ole Miss has a distinct advantage when it comes to weapons compared to Kentucky. Ole Miss's offense is so much more capable of being explosive than Kentucky's. So I expect them to try to grind this game out, just like last year. Control the pace, run clock, run the football, make the game really short. Lengthen their possessions, but shorten the game, if that makes sense. Reduce the number of opportunities this Ole Miss offense has the football. Their physicality is going to be tested. Can Ole Miss rise to the occasion after a lackluster start on the offensive line anyway in this game? I said it on the radio today, and I'll say it here. Ole Miss is the better football team than Kentucky. They have more talent. There's a reason they're a 2-score favorite, even though it's on the road. This game is all about, to me, it's all about Ole Miss. If they play their A game and Kentucky plays their A game, Ole Miss will win this football game. Protect the football. Don't make any mistakes like they did up front on the offensive line a couple of times last Saturday. And same thing with Austin Simmons. Reduce the turnovers. This game is all about how Ole Miss plays. And more importantly, this game is all about the mentality, I think, that Ole Miss has. Here is the second clip I've got for you. He was asked if they need to have, or have they brought extra energy at practice this week? And because TJ Daugherty in particular mentioned that this game has still left a sour taste in that locker room's mouth. Here's what Lane Kiffin said about that.
Is there an extra energy in this week's preparation for Kentucky?
I mean, it was a walkthrough, so, I thought our guys did really well last week, being prepared, not about the opponent, who it was, just preparing really well at a high level. And so that's our expectation to do it again this week. I'm sure TJ and a lot of others feel that way. When it comes to this matchup, it's been a long off season or long season since we played them last. So, need to go up and play better than we did last year.
So I feel like he kind of let it slip there a little bit. Started with talking about how it's just another week and prepared just like last week, and then opened up a little bit. They're still thinking about last year's result. TJ Daugherty mentioned it. It's a game, and he said it right there. It's a result that they still are very well aware of. And Lane Kiffin's a very online person. He has seen every joke, every meme, every mention to him about Kentucky. That program has been constantly reminded about last year's Kentucky game. They have. You this summer couldn't turn on the SEC network without seeing Ole Miss Kentucky. It was on like every single night. But they're well aware of what happened last year. They're well aware that that was a deeply unacceptable loss in every way, shape, or form. And there's two ways that can go. It can be something that they walk into this game really pissed off and fired up and execute and play well, or carry the weight of a result from a year ago and maybe play tight. And what happens if they make an early mistake? If the game's not going well early on, do they allow that to snowball into problems later? Because that, to me, was an issue with that team a year ago. It was when things weren't great early, it would snowball into poor play as the game went on, specifically in Baton Rouge and in Gainesville. Once things were great early for Ole Miss, like Arkansas, they dominated the game from start to finish. But the first half against Kentucky last year did not go well, and they just it's like they were never able to get out of the gate. And the same thing with their other two losses. Does the lingering effects of last year's result affect the psyche of this team negatively? I don't think so. It doesn't sound like that, but that's just something I'm thinking of when I listen to the mentions over the last couple of days of last year's result. Could it adversely affect them? There's only one way to find out. But I do know that I think that Ole Miss, like I said before, has a distinct advantage when it comes to weapons and explosiveness. Where the game is going to be won, breaking news more at 11, is on the lines of scrimmage. But definitely in a game like this, Kentucky's going to try to line up and run right at Ole Miss's defense. And although defensively they put out a pretty darn good performance against Georgia State, it is just Georgia State. Run defense left a little bit to be desired. And that's something that I'm watching for closely in this game is I think what Xavier Harris brings, but what about the rest of them? Are they prepared for the kind of rock fight that they're walking into on Saturday? Will they be physically ready for this style of play? I don't know. And there's only one way to find out. I think offensively they can scheme around issues on the offensive line, use the perimeter. I've talked about it twice now with you guys. Here's a third. I really like Lacey, and I think his ability can mask some issues on the offensive line as well. They showed some quick passing game, especially in the second half against Georgia State. I would expect to see some of that as well. Easy pitch and catch stuff with Austin Simmons. Get the ball out of his hand fast. Let your playmakers do things in space that your opponent, I don't think, can regularly defend against. So lines of scrimmage, that's usually how football games are won, but this one in particular is more important than most. I think Ole Miss has an advantage in every spot, but location and their readiness to be physical in the lines of scrimmage. We'll see. Last thing, this is all they talked about Kentucky in this press conference. He was asked about Zach Calzada and having played against him in the past at another school, and how much do you take away from that? Here's what he said there.
And how much can you take away from what you've seen of him previously?
I don't know. I think people change within systems for the good, for the bad, and especially at that position. So I don't take a whole lot from years ago how somebody played. And, I think you see it all the time. People go into different systems and play differently. So he's very talented, seems to be really smart and savvy. And he's won big games. So we're going to have to play really well. We're going to have to rush the passer and stop the run and try to go on the road and get a win.
Okay. I don't believe him. Is that bad? It's probably bad to say. Zach Calzada has won big games. I believe that part. I don't know how you can watch what he put on tape in the Toledo game and come away impressed with what you saw. Again, he has won big games in the past. That is a real thing that has happened. He has played a ton of football in his career. If he plays well on Saturday and he carves up the Ole Miss defense, then there are real problems in Oxford. Kentucky's going to win this game by turning Ole Miss over and controlling the clock and running the football. If Zach Calzada beats you, then playoffs, it's not even worth discussing. So that is it for Lane Kiffin's talk about Kentucky. That's all he gave you. So that's what we got to go by. You'll get, by the way, an extra podcast this week with somebody that covers Kentucky. Looking forward to that conversation. But in the meantime, we'll get to your comments, and then we'll get out of here after I tell you the podcast is brought to you in part by Advantage Business Systems. Check them out online, absms.com. Advantage Business Systems has you covered if you're a Mississippi business for all of your office technology needs. All of them. Just tell them I sent you to, and they'll give you a complimentary office technology assessment. So you tell them what you need, whether it's copiers and printers or mail machines, cloud storage, data security, anything in between, and they'll perform an assessment on me, absms.com. Also, Priority One Bank, they make you their priority. 16 locations here in Mississippi. That's where I bank because they make me feel comfortable. And I don't like walking into the bank. I don't have a whole lot of money, and every time I have to talk about my money, I'm uncomfortable. I don't like it. But no, they take good care of me at Priority One Bank, and they will you as well because it's in the name. Bank with me at Priority One Bank. Yes, the season is finally here for Ole Miss. You know, it's really unfair, but I'm going to say it anyway. I sure hope this isn't the season for Ole Miss. Because if it is, then they're going to struggle. Look, winning road games in the SEC is always difficult. So if they go in and they win this game, it's a positive result. There is a chance that Kentucky is the worst team in the SEC. If Ole Miss really struggles in this game and they get a win, that's fine. But if you want to compare your team and your program to the likes of LSU and Georgia, looking poor in this game is, even with the win, not a celebratory result, if that makes sense. It's not particularly fair, especially considering what happened last year, but there's a reason they're a double-digit favorite. If the result doesn't follow, then especially if it's because they were controlled on the line of scrimmage. If Austin Simmons throws a handful of picks and it's because of that, maybe we're having a different conversation. But if Kentucky just really controls the line of scrimmage in this game, what do you think is going to happen when LSU comes to town in less than a month? So it needs to look better than just a win or a loss result, I think. Was anyone really shocked by North Carolina last night? May have gotten Bama wrong, but I thought Belichick and Carolina would be awful, and they are. I did love when a North Carolina ball carrier fell down, multiple coaches on the sidelines or yelling at him to get up and keep running. Yeah. The coaches don't even know the rules, and they're coaching the team. The NFL is different than college. College is different than the NFL. That's why Saban can dominate college and not work in the NFL. There's unicorns like Jim Harbaugh, Pete Carroll, but there's a lot more failures than there are successes at doing both. And my question watching that I kept asking myself is like, what's he doing this for? What's he in this for? I mean, he's won 6 Super Bowls. If he had just ridden off into the sunset, he'd be considered the greatest NFL coach of all time. Now he takes over. There's Maverick getting comfortable on a couch he's not allowed to be on. I lost that battle, as you can tell. But what's in it? Does he just want to keep coaching ball? It may be, but boy, that was ugly. Because it wasn't just that they lacked players. It was TCU coached circles around them. Love the Alabama as a poverty program line that's circling now. Yeah, the quote from A.J. McCarron on McCready and Siskey, the podcast, of course, Neil McCready and Tyler Siskey. Here's the quote that Mike Rodak pulled. I have not listened to it yet. So that sometimes quotes are taken out of context. Sometimes they are pulled by people that are being sarcastic. Like, for example, Dari Noka on his radio show got pull quoted like this. And the guy was like, Dari Noka says that John Gruden and Jimbo Fisher should be candidates for Alabama job. He was being sarcastic. There's no way that was a serious thing. So unless you hear it yourself, sometimes things can be taken out of context. But this is the quote that's going viral. Apparently from A.J. McCarron, quote, you look at these other teams that have 40 to 50 million in NIL, Alabama, and I know this for a fact, talking to multiple people in the program, Alabama has less than 20 million in their NIL. So I believe that second part. If he's talked to people at Alabama that say they have 20 million in NIL, I believe that. Also, that is roughly their revenue sharing number plus a little bit extra. So that tracks. That makes sense. Florida State is not paying $50 million in NIL. Nobody is paying $50 million in payroll for 1 year. Nobody. Even Oregon. Because, I mean, if you really want to play this out, let's call it $50 million for 85 players. So 50 million divided by 85. That means that all 85 players on a roster are making an average of $588,000. That's not happening. That's not happening at all. And the stock answer of after a team loses to immediately blame not having any money is really funny to me, especially when Alabama has the number 2 team composite in the country. They have more 5 stars than anybody else. This team, it does. But honestly, Alabama is too poor to compete is a hilarious excuse, and I think all of you should say it all the time. That's a hilarious excuse. Again, I have not heard what he said. It could be taken out of context. He could have spent the entire show talking about all of the things that really caused Alabama to lose on Saturday, and none of it was lack of money. So I'd be willing to bet he talked about all of those things without having heard it myself. But the pull quote's the pull quote. And if you are trying to claim that there's a bunch of $50 million rosters out there with an average player salary of almost $600K, sorry, you're not going to get many people to believe you. And it doesn't matter if A.J. McCarron thinks I believe in him or not. He couldn't possibly care less. But Alabama's too poor to compete is everybody should repeat that all the time. That's hilarious to me. Florida State did not beat Alabama because of money. They beat Alabama because they were better coached. But hey, keep that up. Did I get in on the Sunday Zoom call? No, I never do those. Maybe I should. The Alabama discourse has become extremely entertaining. And no kidding. No, you don't need to explain yourself, Corey. I know you're going to say 11-1. Yeah, the Sunday Zoom call's been at least a few years. I think this is the third year that they've done it. I just don't understand why you're doing 3 press conferences in 3 days. And then you do the SEC coaches teleconference on Wednesday. But I'm sure there's a reason why. And just for a guy that hates doing media, why are you giving yourself extra work, you know? The amount of nightmare reliving by Ole Miss fans this week has been pretty apparent. This is a must-win game, and you need to look good while doing it. If they lose, it's an indictment on Lane Kiffin, considering what happened last year. Absolutely. I don't think they will. But if they do, then yeah. Knew UNC was not going to be good, but didn't see that bad of a beatdown coming. Shades of Coach Prime's first season at Colorado. He won his first game, though, against TCU. Whoops. Need style points this weekend? The fact that Kiffin has made a focus on this game tells you it's both in his and the program's head in general. They will never be able to take away that loss, but a decisive victory on Saturday would help avenge it some. It would. People would put 2024 behind them. Not everybody, but most people would put it behind them if you go up there and take care of business. It would. Yes, I was on time and you were late. That is your fault. Since we moved to 9, I haven't been late yet, though. So keep saying that most of the time that's not true because you're wrong. Of the 3 games they lost last year, how would you rank them based on how you think they are bothered by them? Because I think when Florida comes, especially if there's a lot on the line, it will have juice. I think in order of the losses, Kentucky number 1 because it's the most inexcusable. LSU number 2 because they did more things, rivalry game also, but did more things than Florida to cost them the game. And I mean, like, drop touchdown pass, fumble deep in your own territory, multiple 4th downs given up, those kind of things. Florida just got stupid between Micah Davis playing running back, guy that's not even Southern Miss's best receiver, played running back in a win or miss the playoff game. And the Jackson Dart stuff at the end of that game. But all 3 are bad by the way they played out, but losing in Baton Rouge and losing in the Swamp are not like egregious things to have happen. Losing to 4-8 Kentucky at home was an egregious thing to have happen and totally inexcusable. You can excuse a loss in Baton Rouge and you can excuse a loss in Gainesville. So I think it is in that order. An example of a team playing tight after a previous year's loss was when Bama lost to Ole Miss in 14 and 15. They came apart in Tuscaloosa for most of the game, and in 16 they barely escaped. Yeah, man, that 2016 Ole Miss team just multiple blown leads, and then Kelly gets hurt. And June, stop, honey. 3-legged lab tries to dig in the carpet. Make that make sense. If the online play isn't improved, then Praying Weiss will actually start pulling out a lot more screens and short and quick pass plays. You saw some of that in the game Saturday, more so than you did last year, I think. Better get Kutas a replacement real quick. If he plays like that again, then yes. You know, he's played a lot of football. I don't think you just give up on him yet, but yeah, if it looks like it did last Saturday, you have to consider making some adjustments. You're going to get your quarterback killed if that continues all season long. I think Diggs shows more this week. Looked healthy. Certainly looked healthy. They made a point about Arkansas in 2021 and scored 52 points. Then in 24 against Georgia, they blew them out. Haven't lost to LSU in consecutive years. Lane's teams are usually good on focus. Yeah, and not in this press conference, but they've talked about it enough that tells me they are. You mentioned it. The Georgia game a year ago, after the game, they kind of talked about that game. They prepared differently for it. And it sounds like this one is getting that treatment as well. The Alabama games for Kiffin, I kind of feel like Saban was in his head more so than like the team itself, if that makes sense. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. Like to see how Lacey does catching a pass more too. The checkdowns, I think, will be there this week too. He could throw for 400 yards, but Calzada in their passing game looks absolutely awful. If that succeeds for Kentucky, we have a major red flag in the secondary. Yes. O-line is the bellwether for the team. It gets forgotten now, but Ole Miss's defense putting away A&M with back-to-back interceptions on Calzada in 2021 was a huge win for the Kiffin era, including A.J. Finley's pick six. Yeah, I remember the offseason we did the top 5 moments, and that was one of them to me. I mean, that was College game day, right? That was year 2 under Kiffin, and that game had the national spotlight with game day and all that, and that was a huge moment and a big win. I remember that. It's a really nice night, too, like weather-wise. There's some bullishness that Ole Miss will blow out this Kentucky team, and yes, they are capable of doing it, but the last 3 meetings under Kiffin have been down to the wire. They looked worse than State on Saturday. They did look worse than Mississippi State on Saturday, no doubt. If they control the line of scrimmage and win the game, being Kentucky, we're talking about a 6-6 team. Yeah, absolutely. Bill took the North Carolina job so his girlfriend could be around people her own age. His quarterback is his girlfriend's age. They had plenty of empty seats against Toledo. Yeah, and I assume the crowd will be bigger for an SEC game. But yeah, they divided the stadium in half. And one side is going to be wearing solid white. One side's going to be wearing solid blue. That's not like the favorite travel destination for Ole Miss fans. But I wonder how many of you are going to go. Because I've said this before. I'll say it again. Lexington is a cool place. It's big. It's not like, a true college town in the way you think of college towns. But when I went up there, I loved it. I liked the people also. Was there watching South Carolina play, but I thought it was a cool town. And we flying in. There's just horse farms everywhere. I think you guys, if you're going, you'll have a good time. I wish I could give you Rex. I don't remember. But yeah. Seriously, North Carolina's pregame show on ESPN felt like an audition to the SEC. Then the game started. In my opinion, they'll be in the league sooner rather than later. I think so, too. Now, their pregame production was pretty sweet. That looked like a cool environment until it wasn't. That AJ quote is not out of context. Okay, I'll take your word for it. $50 million payroll for 1 year on a college football team. It's not the one that they just played. So those numbers are constantly inflated as well. But again, money's not Alabama's issue right now at all. We're watching the game. Wyatt Williams needs to be starting somewhere. Run support was amazing. Yeah, I liked his speed. I would like to see it against, better competition. But he looked fast and very assured, right? You can tell if a guy's swimming a little bit, join the team, quote unquote, late, and moving up from D2 to Sunbelt to SEC are a couple of big jumps. But yeah, he flashed as well. Austin with the super chat. Thank you, man. Really appreciate you. Could I see Bama going below 500? And would Lane be the next Bama coach? I appreciate your super chat. I am not going to talk about on September 2nd Lane 2 stuff. I don't think it's fair to you guys. at all. So it's not an anti-you thing. It's just I don't think it's fair to the radio audience in particular, which is significantly larger than this one. But you guys, especially since we do this Q&A style, it's not worth talking about. It's just I don't think it's fair at all to opine over stuff like that. Could they go below 500 though? Yeah, they certainly can. They've got to go to Georgia. They've got to go to Missouri. They got to go to South Carolina. They have to go to Auburn. So I can certainly see them losing 5 more games. I don't think they will. Let's say Alabama goes 8-4 this year. How do you think the patience with DeBoer goes for the future? If they finish 8-4, I do believe he will get one more year. I do not think they will fire him at 9-3, 8-4. I do think that he'll get another year. Think Kentucky is an underrated SEC road trip. Cool area, nice campus. Hopefully Rebel Nation shows up in force. AJ did blame the performance on lots of other things. He mentioned NIL is part of competing going forward. See, there you go. The pull quote is hilarious, but I figured that he wasn't blaming the loss on money. But that quote, I'm sorry, is just hilarious. It will never not be funny that Alabama is too broke to compete is a sentiment that was said. But I figured as much. I do believe that Alabama is going to be a blue blood for much longer if it stays the way it does now. They don't have top-end money. I think that Alabama's a great job. How many not great jobs are there in the SEC? They have a ton of history, more so than most everybody else, because they largely had 2 of the greatest coaches in the sports history. And that's part of it, right? You can't take those away from Alabama. Alabama won national championships under Nick Saban, a lot of them. But without him, what are they? Just like everybody else. Big stadium, nice facilities, dedicated fans. Not every job in the SEC. Almost every job in the SEC is one hire away from being an elite program, winning championships. They're also one hire away from being average or bad. Almost every program in the league has that kind of ceiling. Right hire, Florida wins national championships. Right hire, Tennessee wins national championships. Right hire, LSU does. Right hire, Texas does. Right hire, Alabama does. And so on and so forth. Wrong hire, Texas ends up in the wilderness. Florida ends up in the wilderness. And so, they're all so similar to me. And I don't think it's the kind of job that just wins on its own, regardless of who your coach is. And I don't think there's any job in the SEC that wins on its own the way people think that it does. How much of modern day players not caring as much about the game starts at home? When do we address the fact that culture problems start at players' homes and not behind the headset? Oh man, that's a deep conversation. I do think that people generally are less passionate about things. I don't know if it's TikTok or just the instant gratification or like short form content that's kind of melted our brains, but I do think that people are far less passionate about things than they used to be. Passionate about, you want to get political, far less passionate about their country, less passionate about their hometown and where they're from. We've talked about it before with sports. You've got so many high school kids that are just up and leaving their towns. And you've got this travel ball culture where kids are just bouncing around. And I'm not that old, but when I grew up, playing for your town meant something. Even when you were a kid in youth sports, We had travel teams and stuff like that, but your travel team was from your hometown. And, your high school, it's a little bit different in Mississippi, of course, because there are private schools. There was a private school around where I was growing up, but it wasn't like it is here in this area. But kids aren't passionate about playing on their teams anymore. They just do AAU circuits, and their parents will send them to go play at IMG Academy instead of their hometown team. We're less passionate about where we're from. We're less passionate about things that we're into. I don't know. I mean, there's always been like autograph hawks and stuff like that, but you're seeing like fan behavior at sporting events. That's changed a lot. The heckling that golfers get now is odd. I'm not talking about like a road team in a football stadium getting heckled. That's different. I'm talking about a college kid recording himself yelling stuff at Rory McIlroy, a college golfer, heckling Rory at a practice round. It's like, shouldn't you be absorbing everything that he does? He's one of the greatest players to ever live, and on and on and on and on. I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but I think that we've lost our passion and respect for things, and it's all about clout now. Alabama has to pay DeBoer $70 million to fire him now. He isn't getting fired. Didn't Kentucky have a string of injuries after they beat? Yes, they did get banged up. I mean, hell, man, they should have beat Georgia last year. They didn't. They had Tennessee on the ropes on the road. Their game against South Carolina was weird. And then the wheels just fell off after that. But they were better than their record said they were a year ago, but they were still not lose to them at home bad. What are the chances that Ryan Williams and Mbakwe are transferring to Ole Miss? Well, one of them they tried, and he chose to stay. And Brian Williams is super talented. Got to change some stuff to get back to his elite level ways, but he can certainly do that quickly. Going off last year with the whole we prepped for this game stuff, they'll blow out Kentucky and then lose to Arkansas next week. Yeah. Luckily, Arkansas is at home. Should be a pretty juiced up environment. That should help. What's the temperature of Kentucky's fan base? Dejection. Get me to basketball season. Already seen more passes over the middle of the field and quick passes than we did all of last year. Offensive play calling has seemingly improved. We'll see. We'll see when it gets real. But yes, there were some things that I found myself watching the game going, it's the kind of stuff we talked about last year. The tweets about Bill and his girlfriend were pretty funny. Yeah, I liked mine about how she's going to set her sights on Pete Carroll. You're going, been there for basketball and now football. It's a fun place. I really like it. You're heading there on Friday. Nice. You're going too. Look at you guys. Well-traveled group here. Missouri, Oklahoma, and Texas left. Austin is really big. Apparently it's great, but it's really big. I've heard nice things about Norman, too. Alabama's not as good of a job as people think, especially as they keep distancing themselves from Nick Saban. James, good to see you, man. Tempted to lay the points with Ole Miss, especially at -9.5. Also like the under, too. Ole Miss's defense won't give up much to Kentucky's offense. I mean, hell, Toledo didn't. So take a look at Alabama from the early 80s to 2007. Wasn't always perfect, and they were average a lot. LSU was bad for decades before Saban got there. Florida and Auburn have fallen from their heights. Tennessee was great in the 90s and early 2000s, then fell into mediocrity for 15 years. Exactly. Any update on stadium renovations? It's not happening anytime soon. They're still having to make cuts. The boosters are being stretched quite thin. Paying for a new stadium is just not a sound economic investment right now. A lot of things have to change first. Thoughts on the AP poll? Oh, I hated it. I absolutely hated it because they're supposed to vote. The point of the AP poll is so they make a preseason poll, and that's just for fun. They tell the voters after the first games, the poll should only be about what you saw. So Penn State beats Nevada, and they're at number 2 over LSU, who beat Clemson on the road. Georgia beats Marshall at home, and that's a better win than Miami's over Notre Dame. What are we talking about here? Florida State beats Alabama, and they're behind Florida, who beat Long Island, and Arizona State, who beat Northern Arizona, and Notre Dame and Clemson and Texas, who all lost. So what a waste of time. Alabama's still being ranked as a joke, too. People seem more negative than ever before? Absolutely. And social media has always been a cesspool, but man, there are people that are just so comfortable hiding behind anonymous accounts and just like getting deeply personal with people. I've experienced that lately. It's insane. Any thoughts on the other SEC games? Which ones? There's not many. Oklahoma, Michigan's fascinating. We're going to learn a lot about John Mateer and that new offense in this game. Bryce Underwood's first start on the road going to be pretty difficult. The only other game worth watching besides Ole Miss and Kentucky and Arizona State, which State fans are a confident bunch about that one, which I get it. They played well Saturday in the second half anyway, is Kansas, Missouri. It's going on at the same time as Ole Miss, Kentucky, so you guys probably won't want to watch. Should be a hell of an environment, though, in Columbia. Big-time rivalry game. Glad that game is back, too. Find a Bill and his girlfriend tweet by big Virginia Tech guy. Okay, I'll find it. After the season, I only have South Carolina and Fayetteville left on your list. You will love Fayetteville. Fayetteville's cool. Very cool place. Columbia is what it is. It's a bigger place. The stadium is away from town. They've improved the tailgating there, but it has a very NFL feel still. It's fine. I mean, it's fine. It just, I highly doubt it'll be your favorite SEC road trip. Fayetteville, I think you'll like. Fayetteville's cool. So week for college football? Yes, it is really a slow week. I mean, Kansas, Missouri should be fun. Obviously, we're locked in on Ole Miss, Kentucky. Illinois, Duke could be interesting at 11 a.m. Mark that one down. That one could be worth paying attention to. I mean, Oklahoma State's at Oregon, and they're 4-touchdown underdogs. Arizona State, Mississippi State can get interesting, but why do you think Stribling wasn't featured as much in week 1, saving him for UK? I don't think the concept of a secret weapon's not a thing. It's just simply a product of what Georgia State presented and what came open and what the reads were. I don't think that they were hiding him. It was just the things shook out in the favor of Trey Wallace. And he had a huge game. But I'm not worried. I wouldn't be worried about his lack of production. He's at 55 yards on only 3 catches. But no, I don't buy into the concept of secret weapons. I think that it was more just the way the game presented itself favored Trey Wallace more in this game. He'll get his. I promise you that. He'll get his. He even showed you in those 3 catches that he's got the talent. He'll have a game like that. Maybe even as early as Saturday. So, speaking of, I'm going to hang it up. Guys, I really appreciate you. We will be back on Thursday live, but between now and then, you should get a bonus episode as well. So, I will I'll see you guys on Thursday for sure. You'll have a great night, and I'll talk to you then.